and welcome to another fabulous episode of Thyroid Refresh TV, a podcast dedicated to helping you live a thyroid healthy lifestyle. We're so glad to be back with you again. I'm Danna Bowman.
And I'm Ginny Mahar, and we are the dynamic duo behind Thyroid Refresh and Thyroid 30. We're so thrilled to be here today with Dr. Emily Kiberd to talk about how thyroid patients can get strong and avoid injury. This is going to be a juicy one, guys. So welcome, Emily. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to sit down with you guys.
Okay, before we get started, I want to tell everybody a little bit about you. Dr. Emily Kiberd is a chiropractic physician and the founder of Urban Wellness Clinic in New York City. She started Urban Wellness Clinic with a mission to optimize every patient's health so they live, sprint, lift, race, or stand without pain. Her expertise spans several fields, including biomechanics, yoga, and functional movement. She develops wellness programs for large corporate clients and was also a Hashimoto's patient who was able to put herself into remission by using thyroid-specific diet and lifestyle practices, which we like to hear. You can find out more about Emily at Dr. Emily Kiberd, Kiberd.com.
So I'm glad, Danna, that you mentioned Emily's Hashimoto's background, because that's what I kind of wanted to start with. Emily, you're not just, an exercise and physiology expert. You really specialize in helping thyroid patients. So I was hoping you could tell us about your own story with thyroid issues and how you got interested in helping thyroid patients get strong and stay strong.
Yeah. So I've been in practice for 12 years and over the years have seen a lot of women with frozen shoulder symptoms, which go hand in hand with a low functioning thyroid. And we just noticed this trend in terms of treating women through rehab and through chiropractic, that they were getting better, but it took a long time. And when about 4 years ago, I had my first baby, baby Elvis, and afterwards, you get told, "Oh, you're tired, totally normal, you're sleep deprived." But I was tired. Mondays felt like I had done a full work week. I would crash on the couch. I was starting to lose the outer third of my eyebrow. I wore a scarf all 4 seasons in New York City. So it'd be summer and I'd have a light scarf. Like I always felt cold. And, people talk about baby weight and how it's tricky to lose. And I couldn't lose that last 15 pounds of baby weight. But this was 18 months. So he was 1.5 years old after having him. And I saw traditional doctors. I saw 3 functional medicine doctors in New York. And I was put on different supplement protocols, but I didn't feel better. And I met Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who's a functional medicine doctor in New York City. And she really practices root cause medicine or why medicine, asking, why are you tired? And she really did the necessary blood work for my thyroid. And she used, she kind of uses some different medications that maybe most functional medicine doctors don't look towards. So after seeing her, cleaned up a parasite, heavy metal toxicity, food intolerances, and started to feel like 50% better. But I was still fatigued. And every time I work out, I felt like I was injuring myself or I'd get sick. Or I would be in bed for a couple of days. Like I would just be dragging. It would be so hard to get out of bed. And I had always been athletic. I'd always worked out, had done yoga. And I started to work out smarter instead of that mentality of just pushing, instead of working harder. So I switched from doing more cardio to more strength training. And I had a background in some strength training, but really kind of took out the majority of the cardio, things that I thought I could do easily before, like go for a 20-minute run was 5 minutes in and I was dragging. So when I saw Gabrielle, she's like, your thyroid antibodies are off the charts. How did no one pick this up before? Because everyone else had done, had just run a TSH. And when I started to treat my own Hashimoto's and started to see women who now had those frozen shoulders and had different aches and pains, by doing the functional movement that I do, and then combining it with a functional medicine by referring out, and cleaning up both the inside and strength training, women started to get better faster. So a normal frozen shoulder case that would be 9 to 12 months of rehab, now women were starting to get better faster. And especially with something like that, like frozen shoulder, it is really frustrating. The progress is slow. And it was really great to start to see women who had Hashimoto's start to not only feel better in their body, they felt stronger and they weren't fatigued.
Amazing.
Right.
I love that. Why medicine?
Yeah.
That's such a great way to put it. Yeah. Let's not just treat symptoms. Let's figure out why they're there in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about the connection between like frozen shoulder and why that is, with thyroid patients, so that people can kind of understand that a little bit?
Yeah. So the actual cause is not known, but there is, if you think about the shoulder and the joint, there's connective tissue that holds the shoulder together. And sometimes that connective tissue can get inflamed if there's low-grade inflammation in the body, leading to an autoimmune condition. And that tissue will start to create what's called like contracture. Like it will get like tight and stiff. And in thyroid, women with Hashimoto's and thyroid patients, there's slower tendon turnover, so it takes longer to heal. And there's a couple other factors, like with a low functioning thyroid, it's harder to maintain your muscle mass. So all the muscles around the shoulder won't stabilize as well, and something else will have to take up the slack, right? So sometimes the connective tissue can kind of get short and tight. And so those are just two of the factors. And what happens is women will, go to comb their hair or wash their hair or try to put their arm in a jacket and will feel stiff. They'll have less range, will feel like dull, achy. And eventually some women even just have a hard time like lifting their elbow off, like if they were going to just reach up at all. Like they'll feel like their elbow is like glued to their rib cage. So for something like that, it's a long rehab process, but by addressing the thyroid from a functional medicine perspective, and doing the rehab, which is a lot of soft tissue release and working on muscle imbalances, women get better faster. So.
And, I wanted to just mention, I remember this was about 5 years ago when I was living in Costa Rica, and my daughter and I were playing tennis just in the front. We weren't even like really playing tennis. All we were doing was hitting the ball back and forth, and we were only standing like 12 feet apart.
Yeah.
And we did it for about 5 minutes. And the next day I woke up and I couldn't move my arm.
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Crazy.
5 minutes. It hurt so bad. I couldn't lift it up. Was it this one? It was my right one, because it's the one I was hitting with. And I was like, what in the world? And then I started paying attention and connective tissue. And I was like, you know what? My autoimmune, my thyroid is totally out of whack. This is all connected. It's all related. Connective tissue connected. But it really is all connected. So sometimes, not even just doing, a 20-minute workout or weights, it can be anything. Like you said, putting on a jacket. I mean, I was just doing light hitting the ball back and forth, and I wasn't even tired. And then the next day I woke up and I was like, what? And everybody's like, oh my God, Mom's such a baby. She can't do anything. She can't work out, And then I came back to him and I was like, no, see, there's this connection between, you see, so just to let everybody know, it can be common and stinky too.
Well, you mentioned, connective tissue issues, and then also the issue of slower recovery time. I feel like there's a lot of these kind of common but not very commonly discussed symptoms that go along with exercise for thyroid patients. Can we talk about some of those, Emily? Are there other ones that come to mind? Like I'm a couple that, we hear about are hypermobility, challenges maintaining muscle mass, which I think you also mentioned. Why are those, what are some other considerations, and why are they so much more of an issue for us with thyroid disease?
Yeah. So one of them you mentioned was the muscle mass. It's just harder to maintain the muscle on the bone. So for a woman who maybe has, let's say she strength trains a couple of days a week, she's just going to maintain baseline compared to someone without a thyroid condition will probably gain muscle. Another consideration is that the quality of the muscle is different. So we have different kinds of muscle fibers. One of them is type 2A. So if you think of sprinters, those fast twitch muscle fibers, they have a lot of them. And that's like a high quality muscle type. Type 1 is more of a postural muscle, like babies have a lot of type 1 muscle fibers. And when we have a low functioning thyroid, our type 2, our fast twitch muscles, the ones you probably need to swing that tennis racket,
right,
turn into type 1 fibers, which is like a lower quality tissue. Those fibers are just meant to kind of like hold us upright. So if we're swinging that tennis racket and our thyroid is not functioning well, like we're using postural muscles instead of our fast twitch muscles, which can lead to injury. And then the other one was just like that slower tendon turnover. It just takes longer to heal. Those are all in the research. A clinical finding, but hasn't been researched yet, is that hypermobility component. So if you looked at someone from the side and you start to see their knees travel back behind their heels, like their knees hyperextend, that is a sign of hypermobility, that the joints aren't stabilized, that the connective tissue is getting overstretched or has laxity. Another place to see it is in the elbows. So I remember being in yoga class and I always felt like that person who would get picked on, like the instructor would come around and she'd kind of reach down and put a little bend in my elbows when I thought my elbows were straight, but they were actually going into hyperextension. Another sign of hypermobility is if you can touch your thumb to the soft part of your forearm. And another one is if you can reach your...
Nope. Hold on. Let's try that.
Going this way. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nope. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, Ginny. Yeah. There we go with the elbow. Yeah. Another place for the elbow is like top of a plank. Like it's really easy to kind of hyperextend.
Right.
Plank. And then the other one is if you can reach your pinky back behind 90 degrees. Oh. And then the last one is, if you were to stand knees straight, feet together, and you went to bend forward and keep your knees straight, you would be able to palm the floor.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Which, in a yoga class is what we're all going for. And most people think is like, oh, more flexibility is better. But a normal kind of bend forward, touch the toes, you should be able to just touch your toes with your fingertips. It shouldn't be folding in half, head to shins, palming the floor. That is hypermobility. It's too much mobility. And when there's that much mobility, it's hard to stabilize. It's hard to find our center. Women often will feel like anxious because they don't feel grounded, because they're like, where's my center? My knees are going back behind. My pelvis is dumping forward.
Interesting.
So that's another thing that I find with the women I work with who have Hashimoto's, who have this component of hypermobility. And so when you go to strength train, which is what you need to build the muscle, unfortunately, you can't build the muscle mass with cardio, with yoga, and I love yoga. I'm a yoga instructor. And I had to like dial down my own practice. With Pilates and bar, it doesn't build the muscle. You have to pick up a weight. So, with picking up a weight, if you just had someone pick it up and say, okay, take a breath, stand up, like from a deadlift, what will happen is sometimes women will go and hyperextend their knees, but now they're under load, right? And which can cause more injuries. So you have to really cue them properly and have women know what those cues are so that they don't drive into their hypermobility, which is kind of their default. They don't know where their center is. So it's like strength training, but with like this added nuance because of that hypermobility.
Wow.
Right. So your cues are, okay, you know, make sure there's a little bit of micro bend in your knees and those kinds of things, right?
So one of the cues would be when you're standing to, like if you're standing up from a deadlift, to squeeze your heels together without moving your feet. That helps build tension from the feet up the legs to the glutes. So it's called foot dialing. But I just tell women, I'm like, okay, so stand up at the top, squeeze those heels, squeeze your glutes like you're cracking a walnut between your cheeks. And when you do that, it's actually really hard to hyperextend your knees. Another cue I give is instead of standing feet parallel, to stand with your toes turned out to like 1 o'clock and 11 o'clock. And again, if you stood parallel and your knees hyperextend, your kneecaps will kind of look at one another. They'll kind of point in. But if you turn your feet out to 1 and 11, and this could even be standing in a coffee shop, waiting for your coffee, standing, you know, before you cross the street, with your toes turned out a little bit, it is harder to hyperextend your knees, right? So just like these little cues at the top of a plank, you want to push down through your index knuckle, and you want your elbow crease to point towards your thumb.
Right.
And that will help create shoulder engagement and will take out the hypermobility in the arms. So those little cues you can give, and then it will start to kind of create this like muscle memory so that the next time you're in a plank, you're like, okay, index knuckle down, elbow crease towards the thumb, and that gets imprinted. So then as you progress, so let's say you take a plank and then you start to do push-ups, which is kind of a progression. You're remembering, not from a conscious, but you're building into the subconscious part of your brain to start to help stabilize the joints.
That muscle memory.
Let me ask you really quickly. So you're standing on a mat, let's say.
Sure.
And you have your hands, okay?
Yep.
How do you have them, like your fingers pointing to the corners, or how do you have your hands when you're doing a plank? Because that's a good thing to know.
Yeah. So hands underneath your shoulders.
Right.
Middle fingers parallel. Yeah. And knuckles rooted down. So I don't like to turn out. Okay. I just line up my middle fingers so they're parallel to one another.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Right.
Really good. This is such great stuff to know. And I know I can relate 100%. Hypermobility has gotten to be more and more of an issue for me, you know, and used to love yoga. Can't really do a whole lot of it anymore. And I've been doing Pilates, but even that, I'm really feeling like I need to do more strength training. And that's something we've heard across the board from our family of physiology experts and movement experts, is strength training women. It is so, so important. Before we move on too much from hypermobility, I just wanted to ask about an Instagram post I saw recently on your feed about the Baton hypermobility score. So are those little tests with the thumb and your pinky, is that what that is?
Yeah, exactly. So each, there's 9 different tests, and each limb is a score of 1, and usually a score above 4 is kind of officially in the physical therapy and medical world a sign of hypermobility. So the Baton score is what we use from a medical perspective to score hypermobility. And that can be for lots of different connective tissue disorders, not just for thyroid dysfunction, but I always do it as a quick check. With all my female patients, I teach them how to do it. I teach people who I don't see in person, but I will meet online to be able to check, because it's good to be able to identify it so then you can catch yourself doing it. Right?
Can you give us an example? Can you show us or tell us a little bit, like one or something, just so we know what you're, talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's the things I took you through. So like standing, knees extended, the elbows, the thumb, the feet, and then palming the floor. So those are, each elbow is one. So that's a total of 9.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the Baton hypermobility test.
Okay.
And it's just good, I think, because a lot of women know that they have Hashimoto's or a low functioning thyroid. A lot of women know, hey, my body knees kind of don't stack up over my ankles, or, I always get corrected in that yoga class, but they don't like connect the two. And that's because it's not like a symptom of thyroid dysfunction, but it's a correlation that I have found in a lot of women.
And I always thought being uber flexible was just, well, I'm really flexible, right? And so 10 years ago, before my diagnosis, and I'm doing yoga, and, the instructor comes over to me and she's like, okay, like this, do it, and here I am all flexible. Now I know better that, that's probably not the best way to do things, especially for me in my body. Way too much. Way too much.
That's probably half the reason I loved yoga so much, is because you get that praise from the instructor. Look how flexible you are. You must practice a lot. It's like, actually, it's just hypermobility.
It feeds the ego a little bit.
Well, like in Happy Baby, I could like put my knees down, like on the ground, like, I could really, and so they'd come over and go, okay, now see, and I'd be like, Happy Baby, look at me.
Yeah.
No.
But I think from a traditional recommendation, all the doctors I saw, no one said, everyone was like, have your exercise, be walking, be yoga, Pilates, low impact, swimming, a bar class. No one told me to go pick up a weight with amazing form, put it down and do it again. And I think it's because when do any of us, men or women, really learn to weight train? Like, it's not in high school, it's not in college, it's maybe if we hire a personal trainer, but it's not, like, it's never taught. And then I think the second thing is, it's easy to overdo. Like, some people look at a weight and think, oh, that's going to injure me. But it's usually the user error, not the tool. But I think a lot of people overdo it and then can push themselves into a flare-up or can feel sore. I just had a woman in my online program this morning message me, and she's like, I did squats and I'm really sore today. Is that normal? And I'm like, yes, it is normal. It's delayed onset muscle soreness, and you have to pick up the weight to build the muscle. And totally okay. Instead of doing this many reps and sets, let's dial it down to less. So it's just tweaking her program. But a lot of people don't, a lot of people don't strength train, but really need to.
Yeah.
Like a non-negotiable to me. But
right. And we were talking with another one of our experts, and she was talking about building, bone density and things like that. So, definitely strength training is one of those things. Let me ask you really quick before we move on. Machines, hand weights, can you get both good results with either or both? Because a lot of people don't just have a gym membership or have the machines in their house, but they could get hand weights and things.
Yeah. I think I would actually prefer hand weights.
Good.
My go-to is a kettlebell. It's super versatile. And sometimes different body types don't fit on machines. I used to do a lot of machines, and I always felt like no matter how much I tweaked it, it didn't fit my body.
Mm-hmm.
And it also felt intimidating to have to do the pin and move things around. And it just felt like, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I needed help, even though I knew how to use it. So
right.
I love free weights.
Great.
And if I was going to choose one, it would be a kettlebell.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you see the same or similar issues amongst Graves' patients as well? Do you feel like it's an autoimmune issue as well as a thyroid issue, or do you work with many Graves' patients? I'm curious if there's similar issues there.
I have worked with Graves' patients, less so. They also did have hypermobility. And I mean, they had like autoimmune inflammation issues like eczema and other stuff going on.
Okay.
Yeah, I did see it with a couple Graves' patients.
Can you give us, I know everybody's different, right? So it's your routines and your recommendations are going to be unique for the individual, but can you maybe just paint us a picture of what an exercise program might look like that you would recommend for a thyroid patient?
Yeah. So everything is a compound movement. So it's not body part specific. So there's no bicep curls, there's no tricep dips. Everything is like a full body movement. Usually it's a heavier weight than someone thinks. So for example, most people start with, I'll have them start with like a 24 kilo kettlebell deadlift. So that's like 50, mid 50s pounds.
Wow. That's some weight.
Heavy. Yeah, some weight.
But you'd be surprised. Someone will hinge down, and when they use a good form with like a breath, a good core brace, and the right form, they pick it up and they're like, whoa, like it looks heavier than I thought it would.
Okay.
So heavier than most women think, because they need to challenge the muscle to build it, to stabilize the joints. Fewer reps. So I think a common thought is three sets of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one gets 3 sets of 10. They might get 3 sets of 3, 5 at the most. So fewer reps and longer rest breaks. So if you ever go to that boutique fitness class or like a HIIT fitness class, it always feels like you're constantly trying to catch your breath. You feel like you want to collapse. Most people at the end of class, but the one with Hashimoto's, it's like 10 minutes in.
Right.
You just like lay down horizontal. And so it's long rest breaks. So it might be a 60 to 90 second rest break in between sets. So an example, and I just gave this to my group of women, is a kettlebell deadlift, starting with 3 reps, 60-second break, and then a floor press where you're laying on the floor and you're pressing a kettlebell towards the sky for 5 reps. And then alternating doing that for 4 sets. So that's like one group of exercises.
Okay.
And then the second one was lunges, 6 on each side, starting unweighted, and then a row with 25 pounds, or they can start with less, and starting with 3 reps on each side.
All right.
So heavier, fewer reps, longer rest breaks.
Yeah.
I like it.
So how long?
How workout?
Me too. I like this.
I'm there. Okay. Sign me up.
How long does this take, would you say?
So I try, this idea of like, I got to go to the gym for an hour is like, in my opinion, sometimes asking for a flare up. Really 20 minutes at the most. It might be longer if you take longer rest breaks.
Uh-huh.
So,
and would you say, like, do you tell your people, let's do this once a week, 3 times a week?
Yeah.
What are your, I mean, obviously we're listening to our bodies and everything, but.
Yeah. So everyone's starting at different places. Like I have some women that are like, I've never picked up a weight. And I have some women that are like avid runners and work out. And then I have the other people who work out 6 days a week and need to like dial back. So as a general rule, I have women work up to 3 days a week.
Okay.
So it might be, if you're starting from 0 once, working up to twice, maybe over a 4-week period of time, and then up to 3 times a week, maybe over a 4-week, an 8-week period of time. It just depends. Everyone kind of starts in a different place. And so it's always like, meet them where they're at.
Meet them. Yep. Meet them in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Well, I love it, not just because it's asking people to do less, but because it's so much more accessible for people to 20 minutes, 3 times a week. You can do this.
Yeah.
Totally. It's so doable.
Everybody can do that, right?
Yes. And I know since I've adopted that kind of less is more mindset, and like you said, I totally have had that idea, still kind of do, of, well, a trip to the gym, I need to work out for an hour. So I'm going to do 20 minutes of this, 20 minutes of that. I've got to like I've got to burn the calories, get my money's worth, whatever it is. And the whole thing could be done in an hour, including your shower.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're done for the day, and then you get to recover and let those benefits happen in that rest period.
Yeah. I think it's also a little bit of change of mindset of, instead of let me try and burn the calories, which is kind of sometimes what happens when someone comes from like a more cardio background, to, I want to get strong. I want to stabilize all the joints. I want to turn on the muscles that need to get turned on to move through the world. And I need to build some muscle to help me feel better and get some energy and not feel so fatigued. And then the calorie burn is like the icing on the cake, right? Versus it having be the focus.
The first thing, right? The first thing you're thinking of, right?
Yeah. Well, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Emily. I know I'm definitely taking some mental notes here. And I hate to have to wrap it up, but I was wondering, what are your 3 kind of main takeaways for the listeners today before we sign off?
Yeah. To let go of the chronic cardio as the go-to for weight loss, which I think, especially for women, is hard. Like we think, I got to lose weight, I go for a run. But knowing that there's a better way, knowing that as a woman living with a thyroid condition, that strength training, at least in my opinion, is non-negotiable. It is an absolute must for those reasons of muscle mass, muscle being the organ of longevity. And I think the third is that every single rep, when you do strength train, think of it as, instead of 3 reps I have to get through or 5 reps I have to get through, that every single rep is like perfect unto itself. So if the breath, the brace, and the form is off, just reset before you pick up that weight. Yeah.
Those are great ones.
So you're not necessarily trying to get through it. You're trying to, move through each one mindfully, intentionally, right?
Yeah. Which is so hard. Especially if we're tired or if we're going for the calorie burn, right? Sometimes we think moving through it faster is going to burn more calories, but what we want to do is prevent injury. We want to stabilize the hypermobile joints, and we want to avoid a flare-up while still getting that benefit of weight loss and not, giving us a little energy boost and not feeling fatigued.
And it can take some time to figure out that, that Goldilocks size serving of what's just right for me, where I'm going to get benefit and not have the negative side effects. So yeah, I love it. Lose the chronic cardio, focus on impeccable form, and strength training is a must. I know you mentioned you work with Gabrielle Lyon, and her work is so fascinating with the importance of strength training, not just to maintain our physical health as we age, but our cognitive health.
Yeah.
But that's a topic for a whole nother show. And she just had a baby as well. So I know we've been trying to get her on the show. So hopefully we can make that happen soon.
They did.
Oh, cute.
Did they ooh and coo at each other?
So her baby is like a boss at tummy time and lifting. And my baby will just lay there for tummy time and go to sleep. So this photo of like my kid falling asleep and her kid like just showing what's up.
Oh, that's adorable.
I love it. That's great.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Emily. And for our listeners, you can find Emily at dremilykiberd.com and /strong if you want to learn more about, these specific considerations for especially Hashimoto's patients. And we also have a freebie from you, Emily, that we'll put in the show notes. 3 things not to do in your workout if you have Hashimoto's and what to do instead. So I know we will definitely be downloading that. Thank you all so much for joining us for another episode of Thyroid Refresh TV, where we give you the inspiration and information you need to live thyroid healthy. To receive your free Thyroid Thrivers grocery guide, you can visit us at thyroidrefresh.com. And to learn more about Thyroid 30, our revolutionary 30-day wellness adventure, go to thyroidrefresh.com/thyroid30. You do have the power to heal, and we have the tools.
And if you've enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue inspiring and empowering thyroid patients worldwide, please leave us a review on iTunes. It would make our day. You are what makes this community the amazing resource that it is, and we so appreciate your listenership and your support, definitely your support. We're Danna and Ginny wishing you the best of health. See you next time. Bye, guys.
See you next time. Thanks, Emily.